I hate this track.
Let's go!
I raced you so hard.
Oh, I did a jump. I did.
So what the hell happened this time?
Big crash at the back. That was stupid.
Oh boy, was that a painful one to watch.
What happened? Get us a safety car out here. What are you doing?
Left front is dead.
That race was absurd.
Sebastian Vettel spun round.
Trash can of a vehicle.
1, 2, 3, 4.
What a race.
Oh my God, guys, we did it again.
Hey everyone, we hope you're just as excited as we are for this video. Today we're going to be reviewing the 2020 F1 season.
If you need a bit of a refresher on how the races this season went, you can go check out our race review playlist for all the action.
17 videos have led us to this moment. Before we get into that, don't forget to subscribe. If you are enjoying this video at any point, don't forget to leave it a like. Now, before we give the final score, we of course have to mention the highs and lows of this season. Starting off with the lowest of the lows, our top 3 worst races.
These races, of course, are based off of how we scored them throughout the season, based on excitement, drama, and quality of racing.
So the third worst race of the season was the Hungarian Grand Prix, where most of the excitement happened before the race even started, when Max crashed out, bringing his car to the starting grid.
This isn't known to be a particularly exciting track given the fact that it is very narrow and difficult to overtake, but the fact that we were supposed to get a rain race and it didn't happen just made it that much more boring. Coming in as the second worst race of the season was also the final race of the season at Abu Dhabi Yas Marina Circuit.
For this race in particular, the only shocking moment happened when Perez suffered a mechanical issue in the opening laps. After that, not too much happened in this race. Max carried away with it, and maybe there was some last lap drama, but it never came to fruition.
This just goes to show that even when Mercedes aren't leading a race, it still doesn't mean it's going to be very exciting.
And now the worst race of the 2020 season goes to none other than the Spanish Grand Prix. So what made this the most boring race of the season was there was a potential fight between the two Mercedes we were looking forward to, but it was all gone within the first few turns when Hamilton took the lead over Bottas.
I think it's fine to keep this track for testing, but other than that, I think it's proven season after season that it is just no longer suitable for the modern F1 cars, but maybe next year we'll get a little bit more excitement with two Spaniards racing against each other once again.
So these were the 3 worst races of this season. Let's turn it around now and look at our top 3 races of the season.
This season started off on such a high with the Austrian Grand Prix. We had last lap Lando, we had drama, we had collisions, we had mechanical failures all over the place. It felt like one of the most chaotic starts to the season we have ever had.
It had us asking ourselves if this was going to set the tone for the rest of the season. And that is why we scored this race the 3rd best race of the season.
It was incredibly close between the first and second best races of the season. The scores were so similar. Overall, such exciting races, but something had to differentiate them.
That is why in second place, it is the Sakir Grand Prix. After a first lap incident, this left the door open for an unconventional podium once again.
Although we saw another Mercedes in the lead, I think everyone was collectively just so hopeful to see George Russell get his first ever win in F1. Of course, drama got in the way with punctures, terrible pit stop calls, strange strategies, and drivers seemingly coming up out of the blue.
But the highlight of this race was Sergio Perez, who went all the way back to last place after the opening lap to end up on top, winning his first ever F1 race after 190 race starts.
And of course, this means that Monza reigns supreme. The Italian Grand Prix gave us our first incredibly unconventional podium of the season. We had drivers chasing each other down. We had incidents. We had just general confusion.
And of course, Gasly's first win in Formula 1 and the team's first win since 2008. And that is why we've awarded the Italian Grand Prix as our best race of the 2020 season. So those were the standout races for us this season, but there's also some notable drivers that stood out as well. Looking at our best driver of the season.
There were a lot of drivers in contention that had an amazing season, but ultimately there is no denying that out of all of them, Sergio Perez came out on top.
Having his best F1 season in his career, even after missing out on 2 races.
Sergio had a formidable season and showing tremendous mental strength after being dropped from his team that he was so dedicated to, and ultimately, I think it paid off for him in the end. A few honorable mentions though. Gasly had an incredible season getting his first win, outperforming his car and his teammate. And of course, we also have to mention Daniel Ricciardo, who ended up on the podium twice, and overall just vastly outperforming the car he was given.
Of course, these are the highs. There are some drivers that let us down this year.
Unfortunately, Alex Albon just was not able to step up the way he did with his first half season with Red Bull. He had some bad luck on his side, but overall, it just seemed like an underperforming year for him. Hope to see him back in the future. I think he does have the capability to bounce back.
Of course, there's other drivers that had good seasons and not so good seasons. Here's our biggest winners and losers of the 2020 season.
Obviously, biggest winner has to go to Lewis Hamilton after winning his 7th world title by winning it at a race that was quite simply not in his favor.
When you look at the points at the end of the season, it's without a doubt he dominated everyone else. On the contrary though, Valtteri wasn't able to push the championship as much as we had hoped for this season, and that's why he's ended up being one of those who lost out.
Looking outside of Mercedes, unfortunately Sebastian Vettel also didn't have the best season.
Aside from 1 podium at the Turkish Grand Prix, it seemed like he was struggling a lot in this car, and we even saw him at some points making the calls himself.
Overall, just a year of struggle for him, and here's to hoping that he has some better luck over at Aston Martin Racing next year.
Moving on, there's a lot of different stories and events that happened throughout the year that shocked us.
For me personally, I think the biggest shock moment was the whole confusion between Vettel getting dropped from Ferrari and then taking Perez's place despite already having a contract with the team. I didn't anticipate any of this, and I didn't expect it to have such a large impact on the overall grid for next year.
This year was also unusual for the amount of reserve drivers that were called up. Most notably, Hülkenberg, who returned back for 3 different race weekends. For a driver to have lost his seat last season, it was very shocking to see him make his return so soon. And this was something we couldn't have anticipated for this season. When looking at the constructor side of things, we're now going to look at which team shocked us the most this season.
I mean, for me personally, in a negative sense, Ferrari. I didn't expect them to fall so far behind, and the fact that it was almost a miracle for them to get into Q2, let alone Q3, it was just such a disappointment to see how bad things turned for them.
On a positive note, a team that surprised me this year was Renault, who ended up scoring 3 podiums this season. This was great results for them. Although they didn't finish 3rd in the Constructors' Championship, I think they can leave this season with their heads held high for where they finished off.
Although this season had a lot of highs and lows, we still had some races that we came into with high expectations, but left with pretty poor results. For me personally, this was the Belgian Grand Prix. Spa is typically a track that consistently delivers year after year, but this time around it ended up just being pretty average.
On the contrary, a race that shocked us this year was the Tuscan Grand Prix at Mugello.
With red flag after red flag, more crashes, more chaos, I don't think any of us could have seen this coming.
That safety car restart is nothing like any other we've seen.
All of these different points that we have covered so far all culminated into the final score that we gave for the 2021 F1 season.
We put together all 17 race scores to determine our final score for the 2020 season. When looking back, you can see here in this graph that we started off the season on a very big high. It dropped down, sparked back up around Monza, and then we were sort of making our way back up to finish the season on a high just for Abu Dhabi to let us down.
Lots of highs and lows throughout the season. I don't think we expected it to be riding on a consistent high the whole way through, but we definitely had some races that were significantly better than others, to say the least.
When combining all the scores of the 17 races this season, the official score for the 2020 season is a 5.5.
Now, this may seem like an average score, but you have to remember that although there were races that were peak excitement, peak drama, peak quality of racing, we also had others on the other side of the spectrum that gave us very little to be happy about.
And let's not forget, this season might not have even happened this year. For them to have pulled out 17 races in 6 months, it's something like we've never seen before. Back-to-back races on numerous occasions, even with a few triple headers in this season.
We just have to say a massive thank you as fans to every single individual that was involved in making this season happen. From the teams to officials, the FIA, volunteers, medical staff, the list just keeps going on because without them, we probably would not have had an F1 season in 2020 at all.
So there you have it. That's the official score for the 2020 season. We now look forward towards the 2021 season. How will that one compare to this one? You'll have to tune into our race reviews to find out and see how it compares when we do this final review next year. Thank you for watching. Thanks for making this a great race review season.
As per usual, make sure to subscribe and follow us on social media. Just because it's the off season doesn't mean that we don't have plenty of content coming your way. We are very excited for everything that we are about to put out. You'll have to stay tuned.
We've had a lot of fun doing these race reviews, and we look forward to seeing you in the future.
Bye!